I still remember that day, very clearly. It started with me squeezing down the narrow aisle of an airplane. I was trying not to hit anyone with my duffel bag. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said to a middle-aged woman in the aisle. She jerked her head up, frowned at me. I could almost hear her thinking, "Find another seat." I certainly preferred to do just that, but the plane was full, and the people behind me were getting impatient. So, I carefully squeezed past her to reach my assigned place, which was right beneath her bouffant. She glowered at my long hair, but I chose to keep my gaze out the window. Minutes passed, my eyes searching the sky, and then I peeked from the corner of my eye, only to be jolted by her unrelenting stare. A delay was announced. It was going to be a long flight. Time passed, and again I sneaked a sideways glance. This time, instead of the woman with the bouffant, I saw a fascinating figure in black. He was dressed in black jeans and a sleeveless t-shirt. Silver bracelets circled his thin arms. His long hair was as white as snow, just like his skin, but it was his eyes, an albino pink, filled with a mischievous smile that filled me with joy. This man looked so uncommon, yet soft. I knew I had seen him before. Yes, he was a legendary rock and roll star, Johnny Winter. "What's happening, brother?" he called out to me. "I'm Johnny. They call me Little Monk," he said, with a soul brother handshake. "How did you get to this seat?" I asked him, surprised. "Someone else was here a minute ago," he chuckled, his trademark Texan drawl coming through. "Man, was that woman next to you uptight? She can storm up and down the aisle and brew up a big old hassle." I laughed, knowing he was right. The stewardess swapped my seat to keep us brothers together, and just like that, we had plenty of time to talk. I shared with him my spiritual longing, and he shared candid stories of his life. I told him I had recently seen a great show of his in Florida with Janis Joplin. His slender body rocked with laughter. Never was there a wilder or crazier woman on either side of the Mississippi River, he said. He said Janis was confused, lusty, and stoned out, but a good kid. "Like a sister to me," he added, but he worried for her. "Little Janis is burning her candle from both ends. I don't know how long she'll last." His pinkish eyes gazed into mine. "You know, little monk, money and fame can destroy people." As the engine roared, we zoomed down the runway and soared into the sky. Our hearts seemed to fly as we talked about the great blues legends from Chicago and the Mississippi Delta. Johnny was supercharged on this topic. "We can go on rapping forever," he said. "I ain't gonna sweat if this old plane never lands." Then he noticed my harmonica attached to my belt. "You play the harp? Let's jam, man." In an instant, he had his harmonica in hand and picked a song. "Do you know Mother-in-Law Blues by Little Junior Parker?" "Right on," I replied. His thumb shot up 30,000 feet in the sky, and to my amazement, the famous Johnny Winter began to perform with me as his partner. Older people stared with condemnation, while younger passengers smiled gleefully. Even the young airline hostesses swayed in the aisle, soaking in the free concert. We were oblivious to everything but the music. When the plane landed at JFK in New York, Johnny and I strolled into the terminal. At the gate, a beautiful Danish model was waiting for him. Onlookers marveled at us together. "Good luck, monkey," said my friends Frank and Gary, stroking their beards. "Hey, monkey, don't you wish she was waiting for you instead of us tonight?" I shook their hands. "We'll begin our spiritual quest." Later, we arrived in Europe, crammed into a single tent in Luxembourg. Gary and I lay in our sleeping bags, filled with anticipation for what the next day would bring. Finally, roosters crowed at dawn. Jumping out of the tent, we stretched in the crisp morning air. Suddenly, a shriek pierced the silence. "No! God damn it!" Frank emerged from the tent, pale and tormented. "I've been robbed! All my money is gone!" Gary and I scrambled into the tent, searching everywhere. "There's no use," Frank cried. Gary placed his palm on Frank's shoulder. "It's all right, brother. We'll take care of you. Whatever we have is yours." I consoled him. "We don't need money. We have each other." Frank cast his head down, shaking it back and forth. "There's no way we can make it with what we have left." He was going home immediately. "Are you guys coming?" I had less than $20 to my name. Gary's eyes met mine, and I silently transmitted my resolve to stay. He agreed. We bid Frank farewell, who slung his backpack over his shoulder and paced back to the security of home. As Gary and I pondered the mysteries that awaited us, I found a creek to sit beside. The high trees danced in the wind, and the water flowed effortlessly. With Frank gone, I felt almost nothing, but oddly, I felt free. The sun began to rise, and we were invited to breakfast with some hippies from Holland. After sharing their muesli with us, they offered us a ride to the Netherlands. Soon, we were cruising through the countryside, gazing out at the vast fields carpeted with tulips. The cassette player boomed out Donovan, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones. As we arrived in Amsterdam, we were led to an abandoned warehouse filled with dozens of hippies sprawled on the floor, smoking marijuana. The lights were dim, and a wild band played on an improvised stage. I tried to soak in the atmosphere while I noticed a shaggy band playing. One wild grin, Koosh, blurted, "I'll see you guys maybe on my pilgrimage to Haight-Ashbury." As the days unfolded, Gary and I learned to survive with practically no money. We spent our mornings sharing dry bread under a tree and relished it as our subsistence for the day. This shared loaf of bread became our daily diet wherever we traveled. On special occasions, we managed to procure cheese, often sleeping as guests in homes we met under trees or in public crash pads. I often thought of the people I met, those who seemed merely wild and ungrateful. As we traveled, I pondered the mysteries that awaited us. One day, while sitting beside the River Thames, I closed my eyes and meditated. I felt connected to a universe far more substantial than anything around me. Taking a deep breath, I smiled. Maybe my journey was not about chasing pleasure, but about discovering peace within. As I sat, feeling the water flow, I realized life is about finding that balance, and with that thought, I knew I was ready for whatever awaited me next.
Like, comment, and subscribe.